This was a movement like nobody's ever seen before. And frankly, this was, I believe, the greatest political movement of all time. There's never been anything like this in this country and maybe beyond.
President Donald J. Trump on his way back to Washington, on his way back to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, the 45th and now the 47th president of the United States, the greatest political comeback that any American politician has ever achieved in the face of the most unbelievable headwinds anyone has ever encountered. Joining us today to discuss, Michael Whatley, the chairman of the Republican National Committee. We'll talk about what went right in this campaign, the election integrity efforts. Mike Davis is here at 4:30. What comes next as now all of the legal efforts against Trump are collapsing by the minute? Jack Smith is in the midst of packing his things and getting out of town before Trump gets back. And Neil Patel, the publisher of the Daily Caller, will be with us at 5 o'clock. We talked to him about his reaction to what happened. He was down there at the victory party last night in Florida with President Trump. He got a front row seat to all of this. We'll ask him what's happening in the country right now, and we'll talk to you about this. This is also your day. Please join me today at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Let me just give you the latest state of play, and then we'll get into some of the big picture stuff about what this presidential election means. Right now, we're awaiting the supposed concession speech of Kamala Harris at around 4 o'clock. I'm going to bring that audio to you as we receive it. Kamala Harris is set to speak. You would imagine it's going to be a terse statement, that she won't speak for too long, God willing, but we'll see. She is speaking in front of a crowd at Howard University. I guess they brought back the depressed crowd they had gathered last night, and they said, will you come back for one more rodeo? So they're doing that today. They're in the venue, kind of prepared for Kamala Harris at some point to step out and make her remarks. We're additionally told that Kamala Harris has called President Trump in order to, according to Robert Costa reporting this, to, quote, congratulate him on winning the 2024 presidential election. They say, quote, she discussed the importance of a peaceful transfer of power and being a president for all Americans. Really, you couldn't do a concession call without lecturing Trump? So there she is, her one of her final gestures in this race. Well, I guess she's out of the race now, but she's lecturing Trump about peaceful transfers of power and being a president for all Americans after such a horrific presidential campaign that she waged, that she picked the baton up from Joe Biden as it was shoved into her hands. And how divisive was that? It was just about attacking Americans. It was about sowing division and chaos, saying that people were Nazis and garbage. It was an awful campaign. And then she has the temerity to lecture Trump about, you need to be a president for all Americans. He knows. Thanks. He doesn't need the advice from you. A peaceful transfer of power, she called for. Is that how the left handles things? The left has objected to every single presidential election this century, every single electoral college count this century. They have endlessly tried to imprison Donald Trump, take him off the battlefield entirely. No more politics for him. They've, of course, tried to remove him from ballots in places like Colorado and Maine so that the voters didn't even get the option. Yeah, they're real big on peaceful transfers of power. I love all these lectures. The Vice President, Robert Costa, concludes, will deliver those remarks at Howard University later today. Also, there was a readout from the Trump campaign on the phone call between President Trump and Kamala Harris, and it was very gracious, very gracious. In fact, it just said this: President Donald J. Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris spoke by phone earlier today, where she congratulated him on his historic victory. President Trump acknowledged Vice President Harris on her strength, professionalism, and tenacity throughout the campaign. Even Trump is lying in his statement. So, yeah, I'm sure. Well, maybe he did say those things, but I wouldn't describe Kamala Harris's candidacy as, quote, professional. It was so much professionalism in the campaign. No, she was awful. Awful. her strength, professionalism, and tenacity throughout the campaign. And both leaders agreed on the importance of unifying the country. That's Stephen Chung, the Trump campaign communications director. And once again, a gracious note, as they, of course, have declared victory, and they don't need to bother with, politicizing Kamala Harris or anything. Kamala Harris has to certify the Electoral College vote coming up on January 6th, so she'll be subjected to enough when it comes to this walk of shame business. There's all sorts of new opportunities for that on the horizon. And then President Biden has also allegedly grabbed his jitterbug and called Donald Trump as well today. According to the White House, Biden spoke to Trump today about a smooth transition, Reagan Reese reports from the Daily Caller, and invited him for a meeting at the White House. The president also spoke to Kamala Harris to congratulate her on her, quote, historic campaign. That's what it says. So that's the latest there. Also, we're looking at all of the Senate results coming in. Things are looking good, by the way, for the House and the Senate. Just as an update for you on that. Tammy Baldwin did win Wisconsin. That was the call this morning. That's a Democrat. Alyssa Slotkin is leading in Michigan. Tim Sheehy, that's the Republican, winning in Montana. That's a great story. Dave McCormick is still leading slightly in Pennsylvania. Sam Brown is leading in a surprise lead in Nevada right now. That's the Republican winning there. And then meanwhile in Arizona, Ruben Gallego is leading Kerry Lake at the moment. The Democrat is leading there. But the end result of all of that, should all of this come to pass as it's currently situated, we're looking at a 54-46 Senate. That's a big deal. Getting closer to 60 is a huge number, and it sets Republicans on a real good course because they've got a lot of, cabinet confirmation hearings to do right away. You got to confirm all these secretaries, and we've got to get a bunch of judges in, preferably as young as humanly possible with lifetime appointments to help clean things up. But that work it may face some headwinds in the form of whatever the Democrats do to gum up the works before Trump gets in. In statements today, you've already got Jen O'Malley Dillon, the campaign leader for Kamala Harris's campaign, straight up saying they're planning on thwarting the American people as quickly as possible. She released a statement today to their, quote, team, saying, just a few moments ago, the vice president connected with President Trump to concede the race. Yada, yada, yada. You did a great job. This was amazing, et cetera. Immediately following the president's speech today, she and Governor Walz will host an all-staff call to speak directly to you about what we accomplished in this short run and the road ahead for all of us. We hope you'll join us, and we'll have a calendar invite shortly. I'll leave you with this. Losing is unfathomably painful, she says. It is hard. This will take a long time to process. But the work of protecting America from the impacts of a Trump presidency starts now. Well, what in the hell does that mean? Protecting America from the impacts of a Trump presidency starts now? Let me rephrase that into English. Thwarting Americans from getting what they voted for starts now. So President Trump's election victory, just hours old, you haven't even heard a concession speech from Kamala Harris yet, and her campaign's already signaled that thwarting the will of the American people begins today. So in case you're wondering, will there be any soul searching from the left, from the media, from Democrats? Will they change course? Will they recognize the historic nature of this victory? The mandate that President Trump now has. The mandate. If you look at the maps of America today, what actually happened? You see those maps at all where they have the little blue arrows that point to the left to show you that a district went a little bit more blue, and then the red arrows that point to the right? The whole nation's red arrows pointing to the right. Everywhere. Every possible demographic is going to President Trump. President Trump won suburban women. He won suburban women. What were we told throughout this election? There's no way he's going to win them. He won them. He won suburban women. He won Dearborn, Michigan. He's winning the Arab vote in Dearborn, Michigan. He won the Orthodox Jewish vote. The guy won both the Orthodox Jewish vote and the Dearborn, Michigan Arab vote. How did he do that? He picked up meaningful margins among Black Americans. He picked up huge margins among Hispanic Americans. By the way, just to be clear, there's no such thing as a Hispanic or Latino voting bloc anymore. It doesn't even exist. The Latino vote. Where's the Latino vote going? That's not even a thing. It is a completely diverse voting bloc, like so many other demographics in America, with their own unique political views on the individual level. The idea that you even would refer to a Latino voting bloc doesn't even make sense anymore, thanks to President Trump adding so much support among Hispanic Americans. CNN aired during its coverage last night a map. They aired a lot of maps, but one of the maps that stuck out to me. Stuck's not a word. That stuck out to me was John King and Jake Tapper standing around staring at a map of the country. It was all brown. The whole country was brown. And the darker areas, the dark brown areas of the map, the counties, were the areas where wages have trailed the most behind cost of living. Where wages have trailed the most behind cost of living. And the results were really stark. If you look at that map, what you discover is the places where Trump picked up the most support are where the people have become a lot poorer under Joe Biden. So if you've lost the ability to purchase things by a wider margin, you supported Trump by a wider margin. Now imagine, CNN had that map on election night. When was the last time CNN showed that map before election night? When did they discuss this? When did that come up in their coverage? Oh man, people are really hurting out there economically. Instead, we got all of this rose-colored horse crap about the state of the economy. The economy is great. Jobs are great. Everything's going well. Biden's doing so well. Did you see how quickly everyone started telling you last night? Well, she's the incumbent vice president, so obviously she has to wear the damage of all of this. Where was all of that? Where was that coverage? Instead, we were served these huge heaping helpings of cow manure on a routine basis that, turning the page is voting for Kamala. She's a new generation of leadership. It's a completely different thing. She's not Joe Biden. Let me connect this to one more final point on what just happened. And of course, we're going to take your calls today. I've got Michael Whatley coming up. We have a lot to talk about. But I know in 2020 it was a massive disappointment the way that election went. I know that. We all endured it, and we had to go through 3.5 years, going on 4 years of the Biden-Harris administration, which has been misery, despite what the media tries to spin you. But there's a not small part of me that wonders if this is not providential in this sense. Maybe it's better that Trump didn't win in 20 and did win in 24. And here's why. One, Americans only could conceptualize hypothetically what it would look like if Democrats were in charge in 2020. Coming up, of course, you had the passage in general, but just what would a Biden presidency look like? And then we got it. And then we got it good and hard. And it was miserable. And what Americans experienced was a real-life comparison between what it looks like with Trump as president of the United States and what it looks like with generic Democrat. It doesn't even matter that it was Joe Biden. Mannequin, stand-in, mascot for Democrats. They got to find that out. And some of us knew what that looked like, but not everybody did. Not everybody did. And they were just served a very tough lesson in real life. In real life. And I think that matters. I think this is leaving generational impact on the country to the point that they've experienced a very hard lesson in real time. The other thing is, do you remember the way that the Republican establishment treated Trump after he left office? Do you remember the way that the Washington establishment treated his supporters after he left office? You probably do. Viciously. To the point that Donald Trump's political obituary had been written. He's never coming back. He's done. He leaves in disgrace. And then they set about attacking him in some of the most vicious ways we've ever seen in American history, in an attempt to salt the earth around him, destroy his ability to ever return. And who stood by him during that? You did. But did the establishment? No. In fact, there were so many people who pretended to be loyal to President Trump and more importantly, his voters during his first presidency. But as soon as the going got tough, well, they got going, meaning they got out of town. They weren't standing by him. They weren't loyal to him. They weren't loyal, again, more importantly, to you. They weren't loyal to you. And so that was put on display. And so now what President Trump is entering into as he goes back to the Oval Office coming up in January is a world where Americans can see more clearly what's at stake, a lot more clearly, having been served a very difficult lesson over these past almost 4 years. And President Trump can see more clearly who's actually serving your interests and who will abandon you at a moment's notice. We know that now. That wasn't as easy to see in 2020. It's a lot easier to see now. And with the benefit of that hindsight, I'm hoping for a very, very positive future. Okay. Line 9 is where we find Mike, Washington, D.C. Hello, Mike. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hi, Vince. How you doing?
Good, Mike.
I want to point out that Joe Biden reported 81 million ballots cast for him in 2020. 83% of those were voted early by mail or a drop box. That's 67 million ballots he got via absentee form. So I want to know, since people are still in jail, people have been convicted for contempt hearings, etc., how it is Kamala Harris ends up with 68 million votes. Hillary Clinton had about 66 million votes.
Yep.
Barack Obama in 2012 had about 67 million votes. But Joe Biden got 81 million votes via absentee ballot, and we can't even question it.
Yeah, so let me go through some of the numbers as we know them today. One of the things that stood out to me, Mike, just like you last night, was when you get that popular vote total, you're like, wait a second, how is the popular vote total across all votes lower than in 2020 for both candidates? And one of the answers to that question at this very hour, and this is important context, is we still have millions of votes that are not yet tabulated. That matters. In California, they haven't counted upwards of 7 million votes still right now. Arizona is in the midst of counting so many votes. So it's an uneven comparison at the moment to look at this. We're going to have to wait for a few days before all of those votes are in to make an assessment. But going back to Biden and 81 million, you and I are never going to know what percentage of those votes amounted to fraudulent votes. But here's what we do know. Back in 2020, the media had much more power than it does now over the American consciousness. And they drove people out to vote, not for Joe Biden, but against Donald Trump. They made people hate him, and they would show up with their hatred. That's what it was, so much of it. That spell, I'm here to tell you, is broken. 2024 has proven it. People do not trust the media. They're looking for truth, and they prefer Trump. He's never been more popular, and they just rewarded him with the presidency again. Thank you, Mike. Hey, good afternoon to you. It's 3:36 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Jack Smith is now packing his things. The Justice Department apparently dropping all these cases against President Trump and getting Jack Smith out of there quickly. Mike Davis weighs in on these developments coming up at 4:30. And then at 5 o'clock, Neil Patel, publisher of the Daily Caller, will chat with us about President Trump's victory and the future of our country. And you can talk to us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Joining me now is a man who's been joining us throughout the election to give us updates on how things were going, and now we know how they went. A big victory for President Trump. All the credit in the world here, so much of it, to Chairman of the RNC, Michael Whatley, who joins us now. Sir, good to have you with us, and congratulations on how last night went. Michael Whatley, you there, sir?
Hey, thank you, Vince. It is a great day in America. We are so excited about what we saw yesterday with Americans literally from one end of the country to the other coming out and saying that they want this country to go in a different direction and they want a president who is going to make America strong again and be able to rebuild our economy and our southern border.
Was there at any point that you were uncertain that it was going to go this way? What was your thinking over the last few weeks as we were approaching Election Day?
The primary thing that we saw was in the early vote and the mail-in vote period, because voter registration over the course of the year, we continued to get momentum. We continued to see, great numbers. But, we retooled our ground game going into this cycle and really focused on low propensity voters and trying to reach, people that were not traditionally Republican voters. And when we saw the early vote numbers coming in that were really hitting our target audiences, we knew that was a good sign. And then, when we closed out the early voting period and we had outright leads in early vote in Arizona, Nevada, Georgia, and North Carolina for the first time ever, we knew something was coming up. And, throughout the course of the day yesterday, there's always anecdotes. You hear, oh, we got, long lines and we've got, great turnout, or, the cities are doing whatever. And I try not to pay a lot of attention to that because I'm a metrics guy.
Right.
But as soon as the numbers started landing, I thought, yeah, we've got a chance, and we really, you need North Carolina and Georgia, and then you need one of Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. And so, that's where we really started watching, what was going on there. For us to actually break through in all 7 battleground states and win the popular vote, that's really the sign of strength that America really truly is wanting an America First president and America First agenda. And honestly, the fact that we're going to have a Republican Senate and a Republican Congress is really in large part to the fact that those voters turned out to support President Trump and then worked all the way down the ticket.
It is amazing. Was this always a matter of just the fundamentals of this race? If voters have this excellent comparison, easy comparison between the Biden era and the Trump era, or were there moments in the race that really defined the outcome? Was there anything you look back on and said, man, that really changed the momentum for us?
Overall, we always thought it was about the fundamentals. That's why he had such a commanding lead against Joe Biden. And we saw a period when they pushed him off the stage and, brought in Kamala that there was a lot of chatter. There was a lot of noise. She raised $1 billion in 3 months. She got, a press honeymoon that lasted for a month. And it took a while for it to settle back down into, the fundamentals. And so coming out of Labor Day, we really thought, okay, if this thing doesn't start tracking like a normal election, we're gonna have to figure out what to do. But it really did settle down into that normal election pattern where you have 2 candidates and voters are taking a look at them and trying to decide what's important to them. So that was really important. The other thing is we knew, right? So 79% of the American people were saying that America is on the wrong track. They do not like the inflation. They do not like the illegal immigration. They don't like the fact we're facing a war in the Middle East. And Kamala Harris went on The View, and they asked her a very simple softball question. Is there anything that you would do differently than Joe Biden? And she said, there's nothing I can think of. And honestly, we jumped on that as quickly as we could because it absolutely crystallized for us this election. You're going to have 4 more years of failed policies, or you're going to have 4 more years of Donald Trump's policies where America was strong. We had a strong economy and a strong southern border, and there were no wars because he was executing a peace through strength geopolitical strategy.
And, that moment where Kamala Harris tells the women of The View that she can't think of anything that distinguishes her from Joe Biden, we're already finding out today as the Harris campaign begins to leak the reasons why they feel like everything went south. That was one of the big moments that they were, basically just kicking themselves that they didn't have an answer, that Kamala Harris couldn't answer that question, and they realized that very much hurt them. Also, one of the other things we're hearing from the Harris people right now, ahead of her concession speech coming up at the top of this hour, Michael Whatley, is that they didn't expect to have to make a concession speech so quickly. They thought that even if they were losing last night, that the election would not yet have been called. They thought that this was going to be a longer affair. How is it that it ended so quickly, and what did you make of the fact that we actually got an answer out of Pennsylvania over the course of election night?
Yeah, so 2 things. First off, we fought very hard to put in place an election integrity program all across the country that was going to ensure that we were going to protect the vote, that we were going to be in the room when the votes were being cast and the votes were being counted. So we had legal teams deployed in every state all across the country. We recruited and trained 6,500 attorneys, 230,000 volunteers to be in the room. And so anytime there was any issue that could potentially cause delay or drama in the counts, we had lawyers and we were on site and we were able to nip that in the bud right away. That, I think, was pretty significant. But more significant than that even is the fact that we swamped the vote. President Trump had such a commanding lead in all of these states. I think, frankly, they could have called Pennsylvania and Georgia 2 hours earlier than they did.
Yes.
And I think that a lot of the news coverage was either trying to pray their way out of it, or maybe get some more television revenues, for commercials for keeping people on the line. But we felt substantially earlier in the night that we were in a position to win this thing. And somebody texted me probably around 1 o'clock or so and said, "How are you feeling?" And I said, "Impatient," because we were ready to kind of make that call and get moving.
One of the other pieces here, thanks to President Trump and the success here by the Republican Party, it looks like the future for Republican politics will include a lot more voter registrations and a lot more turnout efforts. Because if turnout is high, right now the math says that means a Republican victory, Michael Whatley.
Yeah, we're really excited. The two things that we set up to do in this election cycle were get out the vote and protect the ballot. The election integrity program was obviously very key, for what we were doing, on election and election day. But getting out the vote, absolutely critical, because if you don't have the votes, it doesn't matter, anything else, nothing else matters. And, we retooled the ground game to really focus on bringing in new voters and low propensity voters.
Yes.
And when we started getting those early vote returns and the mail-in ballot returns, what we noticed was in every battleground state, somewhere around 15 to 20% of those voters had not voted in 2020. They were not regular voters. Some of them were first-time voters. Some of them were low props. And when we saw that as a sizable percentage, we thought, okay, we're onto something here.
Can you give me some perspective on what led President Trump and the campaign to go to Virginia this past Saturday? Last night we watched as all of this was coming in, and I was saying on the air that I didn't realize, I was hoping for this, but I didn't realize that we'd be discussing not 7 but 8 battleground states last night. Virginia was neck and neck for most of the evening. President Trump went there Saturday. Can you take us behind the scenes on the thinking and what brought President Trump to the Commonwealth?
Well, what we saw was that we were within striking distance. We were seeing really, really solid numbers in early absentee vote returns. We saw polling that it was tightening up a little bit, and we were going to be in North Carolina that day, and so easy enough to just kind of try and put those two together. We try and pair up Arizona and Nevada when we're traveling that way. We try to pair up Michigan and Wisconsin whenever we traveled that way. So for us, it was, build an event, go in there, kind of gauge what we're seeing with the turnout. And we ended up really, truly driving, the margin down by more than half from where it was in 2020. Look, Governor Youngkin showed us the way in Virginia, how to run an upbeat campaign, an issues-focused campaign, and really, truly drive that turnout. And so, I'm disappointed that we weren't able to kind of get it across the line. But I still see signs of life in Virginia that make me pretty excited as the RNC chair.
And looking forward, Michael Whatley, you have obviously the White House, the president coming in, a Republican White House, a Republican Senate now. Things are looking good there, but the House remains outstanding. How do you view the House projections right now?
So we're cautiously optimistic. I think we will have a small margin there. And it just really shows you how closely divided America is. Kellyanne Conway, I think, put it best when she called this a narrow landslide, because we won all of these states, by, a couple points. But we did string all of them together and to win those 7 battlegrounds. Look, the fact is having a majority in the House is absolutely critical for us. Everything that we're going to try and get done for the president, for this agenda, we're going to need a strong House-Senate partnership. We're going to need them to work with President Trump and the administration to make the kind of fundamental changes that the president wants to make for America here.
Yeah, it's going to be a big deal. Well, congratulations again to Michael Whatley and the team over at the Republican National Committee, both on the actual get out the vote effort and the election integrity effort. We've been paying so much attention to that and have been grateful for all of your updates throughout this season. Thank you, sir.
Well, listen, I appreciate the chance to come on a fairly regular basis and talk to you and your listeners. And we are, again, thankful for all of the support that came for President Trump and Republicans up and down the ticket. And we're very excited where the direction of the country is going to go now that we've got a chance to move forward with, Donald Trump as our president in January.
Love it. Thank you, Michael Whatley. That's the Michael Whatley, the chairman of the Republican National Committee. Thank you for that. Yeah, we had trouble. We wanted to get him yesterday, but he was in the midst of all of these legal battles going on Election Day. So we figured, okay, let him settle that out, and then we'll talk to him after the victory, and here we are. Here we are. Your call's at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Let me go to John in Bethesda now on line 2. John, good afternoon, sir. You are on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Thank you, Vince. I just want to say that WMAL provides its listeners information, and information is power. And we saw what that power could do last night and for the country. Thank you so much. I just wanted to say that, sir.
Well, it's a privilege to do this alongside my excellent colleagues here. We have a great radio station, John, and it's a lot of great people who work here who really do care about the country. And one of the unusual features of WMAL, everybody gets along. They don't tell you this, but a lot of radio stations, people don't all get along. They hate each other behind the scenes, and then they pretend to be chipper on the air. Not the case here. It's great. We have a great team. And John, that means a lot. I mean, look. We're just here to tell you the truth as we see it at any given moment, and we're trying to do that throughout the election and beyond. And if it makes any even marginal difference in the country, that's a big win for us. So thank you, John. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
That's a nice call from John. John calling from Bethesda. Now more of your calls coming up or your reaction to those election results. Go ahead. You can hoot and holler. You can take a victory lap if you like today. It's 3. We're awaiting Kamala Harris set to address it kind of looks like a sparse crowd at Howard University to give her concession speech. She needs an audience for her concession speech. The infighting has already begun. Jackie Heinrich at the Fox News Channel tweeting that Obama staffers are trying to pin blame on Joe Biden right now for Kamala Harris's loss. And Biden world reacting angry at Obama world, and David Plouffe, remember Obama's first campaign manager, calling him a sanctimonious ass. So that's going great. Isn't that great? I told you yesterday, this is what I was looking forward to, and sure enough, it's coming out, and I'm experiencing the exact amount of joy that I expected to be experiencing on all of this. Tom is calling in from Fredericksburg, line 3. Hello, Tom. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, Vince. Thanks. Kamala was about ready to tell us that losing is hard, but she should actually feel pretty good because her main campaign goal was actually reached because she's given over half the American people great joy in her losing.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Over half. You're exactly right. Joy won the popular vote yesterday, and Kamala Harris played a really big role in that. So we have to send some gratitude out to her for
really thank her.
The role in bringing joy to the country.
All right. Well, thanks, Vince. And hey, great job in all you did to help this election go our way too.
Thank you, Tom. That's really nice.
We had
a good time, didn't we? Yeah, everybody. There was a lot of hustling going on, and it paid off. The media really mocked it, though, didn't they? They were like, "Look how decentralized it is. Like all these conservatives are all trying different things. They're going to lose so badly. We have this perfect machine. It's going to go great." How'd that work out for them? Oh, that's right. Kamala Harris is about to give a concession speech. Moments from now, we'll share the audio of whatever it is she has to tell the public. I think this will be the last time we'll have to listen to her in a nationally broadcast speech. So you can revel in it. It's coming up.